Welcome to another Common Man podcast where we dive in to the things holding men back from experiencing the life they really want, having the energy they want, and the relationships that they know they can have. Today, I'm chatting with Nick. We're going to be diving into when a man becomes his own worst enemy and breaking the cycle and reclaiming that power. And look, by the end of this episode, you'll really gain some clarity on the silent struggles that may be holding you back, that the things that hold many of us back, and some practical insights in how to shift from that burnout, from that feeling like you are powerless, to a life that is full of inspiration and alignment. You'll really discover the things that are really going to break you free of that cycle. So if you love this episode, guys, and it's helpful for you, please share it. Really looking forward to diving with Nick on this one. Mate, it's good to see you. I feel like we haven't done this for a little while, so I'm excited to see that face of yours. How you been getting on?
Good, man. Good. I'm excited to explore this idea. A lot of guys have been struggling with this lately, and they've come to a point where they're able to vocalize this a little bit more. And I think they're starting to see those self-sabotaging patterns as well as they arise in this space. So this would be in line with a lot of those conversations. And I'd even say some of the work that we've maybe done on ourselves over the couple of years of being involved in this space. I'm excited.
I got an interesting one to ask you, because this is something I've kind of been playing with lately, and it was a reading that I was doing of Rudolf Steiner. If anybody knows Rudolf Steiner, Steiner School's like a bit of a thinking, philosophy, action-taking kind of guy. And we're talking about is your self-worth attached to your achievements? And I think a really good way that I have experienced myself, but also helped other guys experience, to know if this is true or not, it's that idea that they aim for something, achieve it, and then feel almost empty or not really excited about what they've just spent their whole life kind of working towards. It might have been 6 months, might have been 10 years. And they're like, yes, I've made it. But there's no real like, fuck yeah, that's incredible. It's like, oh man, I thought I'd be better. I thought I'd feel better. I thought there'd be something way different now. What have you seen, like, in your guys? Have you seen something similar?
The conversation that's come up more often than not is the way these guys describe it is there's like this movable goalpost.
Yeah.
And even when you reach it, the goalpost moves again. Even when you reach it, the goalpost moves again. It's like the next mission, the next thing. And they future pacing themselves all the time, and they're never present enough to actually just take in what they've accomplished. So they're not even there to take in what they've just done, even though they might have dedicated the last decade to achieving those KPIs or building that business or ticking that box, whatever the case may be. They're not even there to receive what they've done. They're already looking at the next thing. So instead of being like, oh, I'm here, I'm present, I'm taking this all in. No, I'm looking up and I'm looking in the distance again and saying, well, what's next?
Have you noticed some common traits for like the guys that have set up goals, achieved them, felt empty? Have you noticed any common traits in the energy that they came from setting up that goal? Like their thought patterns, why they were going after that goal? What was driving them?
I assume this will be very similar to both of us. But I find that this is the only mechanism that they know of where they can start establishing a sense of worth and value inside of themselves. And it has to be tangible, and you have to be able to see it, and you must be able to touch it, and other people must be able to see it so they can validate you and how good you are and how successful you are, because that's where they have associated meaning from. That's where they receive that from other people seeing them. That's how they have found a mechanic to be seen by the public eye and to be received by others.
Yeah.
So I find that the drive is relentless because that's one of like our like innate needs is to be seen. So normally I find that this comes from, you know, when you've been a kid and maybe you didn't have parents that paid you enough attention. They never really looked at you. You were just there. You were a fly on the wall. They just carried on with their life. And yes, you got fed or whatnot, but you were never nurtured. No one like sat down and connected with you. No one gave you that time of day. Those build up the frameworks of like, oh, so how do I get seen? Well, some people become very rebellious and they do X, Y, and Z. And it's like, that's how I'm garnering that attention. Other people, they find ways to pour themselves in, become hyper fixated and successful and really highly driven. And their success then creates the momentum in terms of attention and awareness and validation for who and what they are.
I think that's like, you're nailing the point of when a man becomes his own worst enemy. And that's that I'm doing this for XYZ so I can then be worthy. Oh, that's the real basic one. Like, I'll be seen, then I'll be worthy. I'll get this, then I'll be worthy. And I find that energy right from the get-go. It's like, right, I'm going to build the $2 million business. And I'm like, cool, why? Why is that important to you? And you break it all the way down. Like, why is that important to you? And then the next thing, why is that important to you? Why now? And you really get to the core of the things at the end. And it always, once you get to the real core of like what somebody really wants, that's cool and exciting. But a lot of the time you get there to the superficial level and it's all about achieving something in order to be worthy of some sort of thing. I had this piece relating to the Rudolf Steiner aspect. And to share a bit of a story, I've had a variety of clients that have been like, yeah, I want to make the money. And I'm like, cool, why? I just want to make the money. And they want this aspect of money to have a certain thing. And I think both of us can say we're a big fan of money because it can change a lot of things in your life, but it's not the be all end all. It's just a very, very helpful tool in our current world where we value it. But what is really cool to see, and it's happened the good way, it's happened, we'll say, the bad way. It's like when somebody, let's say it's $1 million, somebody wants to achieve that, they get there, and they're like, oh, wasn't $1 million. But they're like, oh, okay, cool. If it's not the $1 million, what is it? And that's the kind of good outcome. It's like, right, it wasn't the money that I'm after. Funnily enough, they reach that. If they manage to hit that goal and then they suddenly go, oh, it's not the money I'm after, they forget out about the money. And then they just 10x. It was like getting the first little bit was really, really hard. And then they find out, oh, it's not the money. I don't even care about the money. I'm going to go do this. And suddenly money just expands in their life. But it's really sad and challenging to see the other guys that hit the $1 million or whatever their kind of money target was, and then just feel bottomless and empty and have no idea where to go. There's a really tough thing to see people crumble and think that was it. There's nothing else. I'm like, it's such a tough thing to see, but it took me into this book. I can't actually remember the name, Attaining Higher Levels of Something by Rudolf Steiner. But he goes through this whole process of basically cleansing the mind and going through a practice and coming to a place where you no longer are pushed by anything to take actions. You're no longer pulled by anything to take actions. You're just inspired. And you have the free will to choose whether you take action on the inspiration that comes from you. And then you go forward. And it's like, there's been so much in my life that has been like that. And I've always looked for a mechanism to do it. And I think over the last couple of years, I've found that. But that's the real interesting part, getting to that place where it's just inspiration now and you're living from that place. That changes the energy of the results. It changes the results when you get there. But the coolest thing is on the way is epic. On the way is a blast. Have you had experience of that in your own life and kind of seen different examples from clients as well?
I think what you're highlighting there as well is just the changing drivers, because people aren't driven then by these wounds or these limiting beliefs. They're driven by this innate potential that resides within them.
That's a
So
good
it's
way
the
to describe it.
creativity and the inspiration that arises in their system that becomes, so passion becomes a driver, curiosity becomes a driver, self-expression becomes a driver. So it's not, I have to do this to achieve this so I can meet a need, because that's normally how we frame it, with just how we've all been conditioned in general. Like, I need to make money to do X, Y, and Z, or I need to do this to be validated and feel X, Y, and Z. So you're getting the feeling that you're searching for through this mechanism from the get-go. You're now not searching for this feeling of satisfaction or a deep-seated knowing that you're full and you're nourished and you're worthy. You're not even looking for that feeling, because the way that you've started off the process is completely different to maybe how you would have traditionally done that. So when you get to the end, the journey's been great. The outcome doesn't matter as much, because you've been feeling that way and you've nourished yourself along the way. And 10 to 1, I can tell you now, you're probably not burnt out.
Yep.
You've probably made the process a lot easier and enjoyable on your system. And I can guarantee that you're not sitting at the end of it and feeling empty. That's the difference. That's the biggest difference. I've been on both sides of the coin, so I can completely understand from both perspectives. And the latter, this example, is much easier versus pushing and sacrificing, and you have to give up this and do this. It's working with your system and with your energy.
That is a really good example for the guys who might be questioning if they have this kind of unknowing thing. It's that title that we put on ourselves. I'm a hard worker, I'm a grinder, all of these things that we're like, yeah, that's my identity. And I'm like, it takes a while to give those things up, because identities are sometimes hard to throw away. But man, they are just not giving you what you need. They're not giving you what you want. They're not giving you what you need. And I think that you use that innate drive or that innate passion word, and it made me think of like a musician or an artist. If we could bring that kind of version into how we live our daily lives, I think we'd be a hell of a lot better off.
Yes.
Yeah.
We would.
It crossed my mind. I really want some insight from you on this. I was walking Oakley, trying to get him to sleep, out the lawn, round and round in circles. Our lawn's not exactly flat, so there's plenty of jiggles to make him go to sleep. And there's these two titles or identities that I still hold a lot of judgment about. And it's one is a business coach, and the other one is a life coach. And I looked at these two things, and I went, what is a business coach? What is a business? What is the purpose of the business? I was like, okay, cool, because we coach a lot of business owners, but we're not necessarily in this like coaching of business. And I was like, the purpose of a business is to make profit. That's the whole purpose of a business, is to make money, right? That's its thing. Like, if it's not making money, you don't really have a business. You have something that's sinking you. And then I was like, every business is just based on the same principle of how you attain somebody who's got a problem that you solve into somebody that pays you money to solve that problem. So the same principle applies. And then there's a million different ways that we get, if you've got a business, a million different ways that we get sold to the mechanisms to do that process or that flow. And then I was looking at, okay, why is it that guys who have successful businesses aren't necessarily happy, but they have these business coaches? And I was like, oh, cool. Well, because we're focusing on the business. And for that to be successful, the business has to make profit, and then we're nailing it. That's the outcome. And then I looked at life coaching. I was like, oh God, life coach. How does that sit? And then I was trying to look at what are the principles, like a business. You got the principle of person who doesn't know you all the way to somebody who pays you for a problem. What's the principles of life coaching? What do we do there? I was like, well, you have to understand what the outcome of life is. So I was like, okay, cool. If that's the case, maybe it's a belief, maybe it's a principles, like to experience life or to self-actuate, all those sorts of things. So you have life coaching is the idea of how do you find all these patterns that we've got so you can eliminate them, so you can experience life to its absolute fullest and reach your potential and be in that, like what we're talking about in terms of breaking the cycle and reclaiming your absolute power. And I was like, what a powerful thing to really lean into that aspect and then look at business as a tool to experience the life, to push our growth, to develop the great tool that is money, so we can pay for more experiences and go from different states or experience learning. And I was like, those are two really, really great combos. But when you leave one element out of life and you look at the business owners that we have worked with that have suffered the burnout, that have built things from the ground up from a place of, if I do this or when I do this, I'll be worthy. And you just see how they're left like in a hole. And I think I'd love to know what you've done with your guys in the coaching, because I know the work that you've done, guys have doubled, tripled their business, increased all their income, done all those things without necessarily having the business coach. And you've just focused on their life and making them better. How have you got them to understand the concept of closer and getting the clarity on like what is actually closer for them?
I think it starts off with realizing that your role is to facilitate their creativity and their genius. So you are teaching them how to tap into that. You're either reminding them of that, and that is what catalyzes all the changes in their life and their business, because they're showing up within and they're tapping into more of that potential. So yes, of course, there's pragmatism that sometimes comes in, because not every session is going to be like, how is your life today? Sometimes a guy's going to come to you and be like, well, I know you've got an understanding of maybe marketing or this and this and this. I need a little bit of help here because I'm stuck. So you're going to go in there with like a practical, consulting role and give them guidance with that. But then you zoom back and you say, well, what do you think? Or what are you feeling? Or where are you actually sitting right now making this decision from? Do you think that you are in your most resourceful state or frame of mind? No. So I love using the scale of like 1 to 10. Like, where are you on that scale? 10 being like Tony Robbins on cocaine. So that's where 10 is. So if they, let's say, sitting at a 6, so you're leaving about 40% on the table. Let's try and get closer. So what is it that's stopping you? Oh, here's a thought, here's an idea, or I'm struggling with this with my wife, or I am stuck in my head, or I'm doubting myself, or I don't think I'm worthy, or I just don't have energy and capacity. And that's when you problem solve and you get them to creatively move around those blocks to up that state so they can access more of that potential, more of that awareness. And from that space, oh, wow. Well, I didn't actually see this. Or this actually feels possible now. And I was just, because of where I was sitting, I was looking at this mountain. But now that I'm sitting on the same level as that peak, oh, okay, this is actually doable. This is normal. I've got this. I've been through worse. And it's that those gentle, like, refreshers of perspective where they get to zoom out and, position themselves in a more empowered space where they get to make a better decision. And do that consistently enough, you're going to get a result. You remind you're moving from, a previously disempowered version or expression of yourself to one that's constant, that's clear, that feels embodied and empowered to make really good fucking decisions time and time again.
I think you've nailed the difference between someone who's chasing success or building a life that truly feels fulfilling. Like, that is kind of nailed it. You used a really important word, which seems mundane, but you used remind. And I had this mentor, Jesse Elliott, doing some of his work, and it's really cool. And I shared a quote at the last event, and I'll read it out. He goes, "What do you give something that has limitless power and the ability to create anything that it wants?" And I was like, I don't know. Amnesia. You give it amnesia, because otherwise you'll never be able to control it. It'll never understand what it has available to it. And I was like, okay, cool. So we're born with amnesia. We're born with this loss of memory of just how spectacular we fucking are. And you use the term remind them of their genius. And I believe that everybody has this phenomenal level of genius in them. And I think anybody who owns a business, this is what I love about business owners, is that they're already experiencing parts of it, like just a little sniff, a tiny little speck of Tony Robbins cocaine, and when you start peeling off the layers and almost, Sherlock Holmes looking at it, they're like, holy shit, this really is phenomenal. I really have what it takes. I can create whatever I want here. And they start loosening those shackles. And I think that's one of the most important pieces that I don't want these guys to miss, that the reminder is so good, because everything else is tools, strategies, and tactics. And there's thousands of them, and they all work at some certain time. It's the right tool at the right time. But being able to be in a place where you can unravel and peel back the layers for someone so they can understand just how fucking awesome they are, then they can be like, oh, sweet. Then that hammer that was a tool before that I didn't think I could pick up, happy as Larry. Go all four on that shit. One of the kind of questions or places that I want to go about men becoming their worst enemy is a piece around vulnerability, and not just, I think when it's something that I don't battle with, but I also have a perception around when is the right time and who with. Because often I see maybe some things shared with wives or partners and things like that, and it's often not the right person to have that vulnerability with. And it's not because we don't know, but I think often we don't have the resources, like a community of, for us it's men, like other men, to open up and have that vulnerability and sharing with. But how do you think that ability to be vulnerable, having those people, the right people to share it with, helps men become more?
I think like it comes down to that practice that men are so good at with suppressing emotion. Because the minute you suppress a feeling, it's going to stack up. It's unresolved. There's a charge in your system, and you're going to inevitably act out, or you're going to seek a release, and subconsciously you're going to be driven to do something to release that. And I find that with that, it's either addiction, it's checking out, dissociation, it's porn, it's whatever activity you can think of to avoid that feeling that you have in your system. And guys don't necessarily have the understanding or the mechanic, or they're too afraid of actually sitting with that. So being able to confront the feeling that, by the way, that is residing within your body. So you're just feeling something inside of your body. So it's not that the feeling is bigger than you. You're bigger than the feeling because it's happening inside of you. You get to let go of it, reframe it, express it, get curious about it. And when you are plugging yourself into a space where someone can guide you and help hold that space, where they're inviting you, hey, like, you can explore this. Like, it's okay. It's not going to kill you. This is actually just an invitation to be more, to do more, to express more, to give yourself the opportunity to be a better, bigger, more authentic expression of you. Like, why would you not want to do that? And having a coach or having a guide or a community or just a space where you can do that. And look, even if it's a therapist or whatever the case is, if you can find an outlet where you feel safe enough to express, but you're not going to feel judged, because that's the thing. You're going to have the self-judgment. It's like, oh, I'm vulnerable. There's an open wound here. It's okay, because everyone has emotions. You're not the only one in the world. Like, it's okay. Everyone has their shit they have to deal with. But you just being willing to confront that, take ownership, and share that with another person. Just by doing that, you will start opening things up, and things will begin to unravel and make more sense bit by bit. And I find that's invaluable, because now you're no longer subject to making decisions from that suppressed space.
Yeah. I just this Saturday gone, I had an experience where I was organising to go biking, yes, with another man in very tight clothes, just to make that nice and clear for everyone listening. So I finally got our shit sorted. We're going to go riding. We're a couple of hours late. And Fleur's like, I can't believe this. I'm not going to get to do any of the stuff we talked about. And I was like, yes, we are. We're going to get to do all this. And then there was this, as I was leaving, this thing about you don't spend enough time with me or with Oakley. And I was like, I'm going to go biking. So I'm like, right, take that. And I went off biking and I'm biking along with my mate Doug. And I'm like, dude, one, I feel fucking angry, but I know under the anger there is this element of not necessarily shame, but idea that I could do more. I could have been better. I could have done something. I could have, all these things. And I went through this whole process, whole story in my head. I'm like, how has this worked out? So Fleur has now become a mother. So she's given up her work and her work has become being a mother. I've now become a dad, but I haven't given up my job. My job's still my job, and I've got to fill up my other time being a dad, plus make sure the house is good, taking on the dinners. I'm like, So as a dad, you give up nothing in terms of work, but you take on more, where the woman gives up like her work and takes on the child. And my mind's reeling at the stage, like, who's got a better deal, who hasn't, blah, 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 blah. And then I ask myself, okay, cool. How can you do better? And that was just so simple that I went through this whole process of being really angry. I was open to my mate about it. I was like, look, I'm fucking feeling really angry about this. I'm feeling a bit of shame. I'm like, can you listen to the story? I opened up about the story. He just listened, didn't say anything the whole time, which was great. And then I just got to the end of it. And I was like, okay, I feel better about it. What am I going to do about it? And the answer came to me, expand. Expand. Like, you've got the power. You've got everything that you need. Expand. So that was it. I was like, cool. And that, in simple terms, so it's just be better, do better. Because there are places that I can do better. And I think anger's always a really easy thing to see from a guy's perspective, but there are so many layers deeper in that. And I think that is the cycle that we get caught up in, that we lose all our power. We end up pushing it onto our relationships, our friends and everything. And we hop in the cycle. We get angry. We express that anger. It then causes shit to unravel. The snowball rolls downhill and then we lose everything that we love, rather than going in, taking that moment to be like, why am I angry? Can I share this anger with someone and actually discuss it out and find out what sits below the anger, and literally to come to a solution at the end? I was like, cool. Expand. Got back from my ride, finished it slightly early, had a chat to Fleur. I was like, I'd prefer if this was the case, like, mention it to me earlier so I can change, so I can observe, so I can make it. And then the thing that she wanted to do, I just dropped everything else and we went and did it. And we had a great day. I got my bike ride in. She got her thing in. I expanded, became more aware of things. I was like, wow, that day went from me wanting to put fucking headbutt Fleur, thinking I was a terrible dad, to now being like, I'm a better dad for it. We had more fun. And I got to hang out with my mate and share like a deep connection. It was awesome.
Change in perspective and asking a powerful question. And I think one of the components that maybe didn't mention there, most people are just not comfortable with conceding their narrative and idea and questioning it. So they're very stuck in the idea of, well, I'm right. Like my viewpoint is the only valid viewpoint here. And then you're very much stuck in that space of ego and self-righteousness. And it's actually just a protective space, because the ego doesn't want to change. That's how it is. It's the what's the word that the way I expressed this before, it's the soul in incubation. So if you think of your ego as this young child or adolescent that's learning to expand, like it's a process.
Yeah.
And that's where you can come in and guide that process so that it's in alignment with what's happening in your space.
I've got one note here from you that I think is really probably one of the most powerful things that the guys can take away from this podcast as well. And that's that question of what would life look like if you believe that who you are right now is already enough. And I don't think anybody takes the time to contemplate that, because our core wounds that we operate from are so often, I'm not enough, I need to be seen more. So that seen might come out as anger, violence, pulling back, whatever it is, the victim. It's like, if you're already enough, then what business decisions do you make? What relationship decisions do you make? What decisions do you make about your own health? How you treat yourself, how you treat others, how you are in heated discussions. Suddenly, that's a game changer. Like a game changer.
Yeah.
Simple but not easy, but a game changer.
It's not, the world isn't against you. It's just you against your perception and your frames of reference. It's not you against you technically, but it also is. It's you against your mind.
Yeah. The rest was real.
That's it. And that's the dance that everyone's dancing. And some people are just a couple of steps ahead. Yeah. And they see the game differently. And so they're able to play it differently.
Yeah. Have you got anything else you want to share with our guys?
I think, just going through this conversation today, if you're here at this point and you are one of the fortunate ones with an attention span, really sit down and like sit on a couple of these questions and take a moment to reflect. And the invitation is to face yourself within this. Like it's okay to feel confronted and to feel vulnerable and to feel, like I don't necessarily like this about myself, or I don't know what to do with these feelings. It's okay to raise your hand and say like, well, I need help, or I don't know how to do this because this has never been modeled to me. And it's okay to realize that you're projecting your own insecurities on other people. It's okay to realize that, you're the one that has to take ownership and accountability, and you can't exactly base your entire life on everyone else's array of decisions or indecisions. Like you've got to make a decision for yourself, and you've got to take ownership if you didn't make the decision and outsourced your power. It's okay to sit in these uncomfortable spaces because that's where you're going to grow. And honestly, if it resonated in this space, well, reach out. This is what we do. We give you the space, we give you the perspective, we give you the tools so that you can explore yourself, and not just from a space of life, from how you get to express yourself, because business is just a way in which you get to express who and what you are. And if you're doing it from a space of alignment, you're doing it from a space of passion, then that's an incredible expression that you get to share with the world. And then there's impact and there's fulfillment and there's more. There's always more. So I just want to invite anyone in that feels a deep resonance with taking those steps. Well, reach out. That's why we started this movement, being uncommon, taking the uncommon approach, the uncommon way. This isn't just a project, it is a movement of men and individuals that want to change and be better and be stronger and be part of a collective of like-minded people that just want to create an impact in the world and live their best life. And that's as simple as it is. By being the best version of you, you get to do that. You get to be the best dad, be the best business owner, be the best partner, and maybe you get to love yourself on the way as well. And appreciate that.
On the journey, eh? Thanks, Nick, mate. And that's, that call to action for the thousands of dudes who listen to this. That's it. If you're sick of that endless cycle where you don't feel empowered, we'll drop the links in. You can join our community. There's our group there. you can send a message. Come on over. Open arms. Thanks a lot for your time, brother.